What I liked about him when I saw him in person at the East-West.
So I think this kid gives you a lot of potential in terms of what you're looking for up front.
I see him in the Bears offense as a Z or a slot receiver, not the X, because they want the real big guy playing the X.
He could be sitting out there in the third round, and you could be getting a guy that could be your situational pass rusher.
I think he's a perfect fit for what I've been told the Bears are looking for.
This is my 3 techniques for the Bears, especially if you don't take a guy like Jalen Carter at the top of the draft. This would be a nice pickup. Fits perfectly in the system.
My gut feeling is this would not be a guy the Bears would take.
It's a good name because that's a guy that I'm intrigued by. Obviously here with the Bears, defensive line, defensive front is a huge need.
I think he's the best center in this draft.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of Draft on Tap, and what a week here at the Bar Room for draft coverage. It started on Sunday with the Barfly Tailgate Show. Those guys went live and celebrated the fact that one of the members of the Tailgate Show, Ryan Billings, his cousin, is now a member of the Chicago Bears playing defensive tackle. How about that for news? And then on Monday, Dan and I did a special Bear Their Souls. On Tuesday, we did the full gang on Bear Their Souls. And tonight, we've got Niel Stopchinski and Danny Shimon to talk football. And in about 30 minutes, Eric Edholm from NFL.com will be interrogated by the two guys. Let me bring in the guys one at a time. Niel Stopchinski, how are you, my friend?
Gentle, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Are you ready to talk football?
Hell yeah. You know what? Red Bulled up, draft on tap ready. Wednesdays have become gauntlet days for me, so I got to have my wings on. I'm ready to rock.
I love it. I love it. Let's bring in your partner, Danny Shimon. Danny, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm just wondering, did Neil ever get that Red Bull sponsor?
Hey, I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it.
All right, man. We need that sponsor, man. Come on, let's go. Let's work that. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited, pumped. Like I said, Aldo, great show. I love Eric at home. I could talk ball with him, draft with him for hours, but he's going to be here giving us a lot of info in terms of what he's hearing and what he sees possibly happening on the 27th of April for the draft. And obviously, we have a lot to talk about here in terms of what the Bears have been doing, or in some cases not doing.
Yeah. Eric is one of our all-time favorite guests on all of the Barroom Network shows. And he just started at NFL.com, I think a year or maybe 2 years ago, and has written for Sporting News, Yahoo Sports. This guy knows football, and he presents it in a very entertaining way. I'm going to just stay out of the way and let you guys talk to him when he joins us in about 30 minutes. But, guys, I want to talk about the Bears' offensive and defensive lines, because that is still a problem area with this team. Every other position area is at least acceptable right now. If you had to go to battle on Sunday, first regular season game, maybe I'm stretching that a little bit, but definitely the offensive and defensive lines are still a work in progress. And so what I thought we would do today is for you guys to address that problem in your in the first 3 rounds of your pretend mock draft, and to talk about the guys you think the Bears can target and why you think they would be a good fit for the Chicago Bears. So let's start this way. Neil, explain to me how you see the state of affairs with the Chicago Bears at the line of scrimmage right now. How bad are things? I think they're pretty bad. I bet you agree too.
Well, to be honest, and I think we all are looking at the same roster right now, we see 2 massively glaring holes, and it's one of the tackle positions, and a guy to wreak havoc in the backfield off the edge. I think, defensive end, edge rusher, and right tackle are the two main needs that we need to address. Probably, with the first 2 picks, if not the first 3 picks of his draft coming up, that pick at number 9 is going to be, massively critical to get a immediate impact player, one that's going to be ready to start and kick ass on day one. Just a matter of which direction they decide to go. To me, it's best player available at the 2 positions of need. And I know there's also some possibility for the scenarios to pop in where we can either trade up or trade down, acquire more draft capital, put ourselves in a better position to, fix these massive holes. And then if you go just inside, defensive end, the defensive tackle position isn't quite, figured out yet. There's not a whole lot of depth there. We signed Ryan's cousin this week, Andrew Billings, which I'm really excited about. I love that kid in high school. He's a great player in college, big and athletic human. And then, Justin Jones right there next to him, captain last year, mildly productive. But the problem is, guys, we don't have, massive impact players inside right now. And we also don't have depth. And so that would be the 3rd position that I would want to attack with that, one of those 3 picks that we have at 953 and 61.
Danny, how bad do you think the situation is? And giving me an overview, just like Niel did.
Well, I mean, the word I keep coming back to, referring when you talk about the Bears offseason so far, is just underwhelming. And I'm confident that there's more going to be added, obviously, to the draft. And by the time the week 1 comes, and the roster is going to have some more talent on it. But just in terms of everything that Ryan Poles has done so far, and I know he's getting kudos on a bunch of the the moves he's made so far, but to me, it's very underwhelming. You guys know that how I feel. I'm an offensive line, defensive line guy. If I feel like your offense and defensive line suck, then your team sucks. So, I see a lot of people, kind of celebrating the move so far and saying, the Bears have improved. But I ask myself the question, I ask you guys this question: if the Bears went out there and played a game today, are they that much better than they were week 18 of this last season? I don't know. Because, I mean, who's going to get after the quarterback? The linebackers they got, they're nice. They're good players. Don't get me wrong. But, in order for them to eat, you need guys up front to do their work and give them lanes and creases to be able to get through and make plays in the backfield. So you still have anybody that can pass rush, get after the quarterback. DeMarcus Walker is a nice rotational player they got there. But I still want to see the defensive line beefed up, and obviously the offensive line. We got some clarity from Ryan Poles saying that, Cody Whitehair will be moving over to center most likely. So now that leaves the question of Tevin Jenkins. Is he in the plans of the future? He's staying at right guard. Are you bringing in, the new guy, Nate Davis, and putting him at left guard, even though he's played all 3 years or all 4 years of his career at right guard? There's a lot of questions there as well. And then, of course, right tackle. And that's another key area there as well. So still a lot of areas to go ahead and improve on. Again, still plenty of time. So even though I keep using the word underwhelmed, I'm not, it's not like, I'm upset or pissed off or anything like that. It's just we got to be patient. And Ryan Poles, one thing he has shown is he has the patience to kind of wait out these veteran free agents and get the price he wants, not overpay for them. And then let's see. I'm convinced that he's not going to stay at number 9. I think he's going to go ahead and try and trade down, and then possibly trade back up. We'll see how that goes out. But I'm just underwhelmed is the word I have right now, and there's still plenty of holes, especially up front on this team.
And there's plenty of draft picks coming, and there's still plenty of money to fix those holes. But as Ryan Poles said, he can't fix this roster completely in just 2 seasons. And really, it's just 1 season, because what transpired last year was a gutting of the roster, and this season is the real part of where they're building up that roster. So let me start with you, Danny. Let's go to the number 9 pick. I'd love for you to give me a player that you think might fall to number 9 that can address the needs at the line of scrimmage. Take it away.
All right. So before I give you my pick, I just want to kind of say I assume that both Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter are gone by the 9th pick. So that's why that's how I assumed when I made this pick here. And I assume that I can't trade down because, like I said earlier, I think Ryan Poles is going to trade down. But let's just say for the sake of the exercise, let's go ahead and say with the 9th pick, I have the Bears taking Paris Johnson, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. He's a guy that 6'6", 313 pounds, 36 plus arm length, has the athletic ability to be able to, be a very good pass protector. For me, he's a guy that needs to get a little bit stronger. But these are all college kids. A lot of them do have to come out and get stronger anyway. But that's where he needs to kind of improve there. For me, he's a better pass blocker than a run blocker at this moment. And the reason I went with him over Skoronski or even Jones from Georgia is that he has not only the experience in terms of he's been starting the last 2 years, but he started also at right guard the previous year. Okay, so he's got the experience, if you will, being in that right-handed stand. And that's why I'm bringing him in. I'm pulling in a right tackle, and now you're going to have your bookend tackles with Braxton Jones and Paris Johnson for years to come here if you're Ryan Poles. And now that fixes that right tackle spot. So now you've solidified another area on your offensive line. It came down to, believe it or not, between Skoronski and Paris Johnson, and a reason why I went with Johnson, again, the need at right tackle. Skoronski is a guard for me. He might come in and be an all-pro left guard. That's how good he is. And I think kicking him inside would just kind of, I comp him to a Zach Martin when he came out of Notre Dame. He was a guy who played tackle at college, kicked him inside the guard, and he's been an all-pro guard since then. So, but I just went with, in terms of bringing in Johnson, you kind of secure your bookend tackles for years to come there with two young guys. And I think that's where I went with Paris Johnson over Skoronski there with his 9th pick.
Okay, so what we'll do is, Danny, we'll circle back to you to get the 2nd round pick, number 53. But we're going to do this like a fantasy football draft. I'll have now Niel snake his way, pick his number 9 pick of the 1st round, and then pick the number 53. And by the way, I didn't put any restrictions on you guys. So if you are going to offer up a trade here, you have my blessing.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know the homework assignment then.
I'm a bad teacher. I didn't give you all the materials to work with.
All right.
But you also didn't set a ceiling on it either, so it's up to you to use your creativity.
Exactly.
Well,
it's like being your favorite liberal arts college all over again.
That's right. All right, Neil, take it away.
Yeah, first off, I got to apologize for these sirens. I live on one of the busiest streets in Chicago, and it's just nonstop. So my bad. Also, welcome St. Omni, gracing us with your mysterious presence. Gotta appreciate that. When it comes to this number 9 pick, I know, Danny touched on, the possibility of a trade. I touched on the possibility of a trade. I think there's several scenarios which could, suit the Bears in terms of either trading up or down. I think, and just I've looked around at, other draft guys' mocks compared to mine, and I did see a few people that know what the hell they're doing have the possibility of the Bears trading up a spot or two if, say, somebody like Tyree Wilson was there, if there was maybe a bird in Pole's ear that Paris Johnson was going to pick or two early. And, those are definitely the possibilities with the kind of draft capital that we do have in our back pocket, that Poles has in his back pocket. And the critical need for an edge rusher or a right tackle at play, I will not put it past Poles to go ahead and trade up. I also would not put it past him to trade down, maybe into the middle of the 2nd round, and find somebody like a Broderick Jones, a Darnell Wright, Will McDonald, maybe a little bit of a stretch to find in the middle of round 1. But there's definitely players that could fit the need as well between 10 and 20 that he could go ahead and recoup another, early, maybe 2nd round draft pick. We talk all the time about, how inopportune it was to lose that early pick to the Ravens when we traded away Roquan Smith. So, but not really factoring in the type of capital going into trading up or down with number 9. I just use number 9 to make the pick. And assuming that Paris Johnson, Tyree Wilson were both available, those are my top 2 players at both of those positions of dire need. Broderick Jones and Will McDonald being basically the next below in the 2 deep. Assuming that Paris Johnson and Tyree Wilson are both available, in my eyes, I feel like the right tackle position, the offensive line position, is the next place to go to make sure that Justin Fields has protection across the front. I think that's, when you look at building a roster, it's quarterback, offensive line, defensive end, in that order. If you had your opportunity, if you had your way. So Paris Johnson was the one that I went with as well at number 9. He had a great pro day today, guys. Although I didn't get a chance to actually watch it, I was way too wrapped up in everything else I had going on today. but from what it sounds like, showed amazing feet, excellent clicks, absurd athletic ability. You know, and you know, he's got the size and strength. He's got the length with the 36 plus arms. And, you know, again, we talk about a guy that has all kinds of position versatility as well. Has started at guard, he started at tackle, he has the experience. Moving him to right tackle may be a little bit different in terms of muscle memory, learning a new spot, training your body to move different ways in different situations. But as athletic as this kid is, long and big and physical as this kid is, I think that he's a shoo-in for that right tackle spot. And the best thing about that, guys, is that Poles can go ahead and move Braxton Jones around and Paris Johnson around to whatever fits best for this offensive line. Both those guys could probably play either of those two positions. So he'll bring a really athletic offensive tackle in, figure out what works best. We'll slot him in at right tackle for now, subject to change, but that's how it looks like for now. And I think that all of us here in Chicago would be massively and insanely happy with that pick.
Before you move on to your second round pick, Neil, I want to ask Danny. So if Wilson and Johnson are both there at 9, I can see a debate starting now. Take it away.
Tyree Wilson is my guy. I mean, I like this kid so much that even if the Bears had stayed at number 1 overall, I would have taken him over Jalen Carter. That's how much I believe in this kid. How much I'm infatuated with his skill set, and he also fulfills a position I need. And I agree with you, Neil, in terms of, you know, I love all things about Paris Johnson as well. But this team, up until they just signed DeMarcus Walker, their leading sack guy last year was Jaquan Brisker with 4. That's pitiful. Mm-hmm. And now, well, obviously, the Sound Walker had 7 last year. So you need to upgrade this pass rush in the worst way. And just kind of, you know, looking at the edge guys, I know there's a lot of guys being floated around in terms of, you know, potential edge players, but, you know, there's only a few guys that can be impactful, I think, and fit this scheme perfectly. And I think Tyree Wilson would have been a slam dunk if he's available at number 9, even with Paris Johnson on the board, just because, again, I feel like I can get a tackle in the second or third round. Not to the caliber of Paris Johnson, sure. I agree. You know, I know that, but again, I don't think I can get an edge guy that can give me all around game that Tyree Wilson would give me at defensive end. If you can trade down and get a Will McDonald, love it. I love Will McDonald, but again, he's a guy that's going to be a situational pass rusher early on in his career. At 240 plus pounds, he's a guy that needs to get stronger to be able to be a full-time defensive end. So you're looking at a guy that's going to come in probably on passing situations and wreak havoc. But again, just for me, Tyree Wilson would have been, if that scenario plays out, you know, like you said, you're coming down between Tyree Wilson and Paris Johnson Jr., I would have gone with Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, I could go either way with it, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, both of those guys are insanely talented and fill immediate needs. I base it off of if I'm looking at the depth of offensive tackle as we get toward the tail end of round 2, and the depth of defensive end as we get toward the tail end of round 2. I feel a little bit more comfortable with the depth at defensive end, edge rusher, however you want to term that, towards the tail end of round 2, which is why I decided to go with the freak athlete, the exceptionally talented offensive tackle, rather than the freak athlete, exceptionally talented, long, big, you know, all the different words that we love to use, the traits these guys have at that position at 9. But, you know, again, I can go either way with it. I've said before that Tyree Wilson was definitely, you know, my top pick at number 1. If we still had that pick, if I had my choice of anybody in this draft, and I still do feel that way. If we still had number 1, I still do feel that way. I'd probably take Tyree Wilson at number 1. But we're sitting there at 9. You know, we got some things to play with a little bit. I can go either way. Like I said, I just went with Paris.
What's interesting is I believe that if Wilson falls to number 9, then some people might be concerned about the medicals on him. But that's just speculation on my part. I highly doubt that he'll be there at number 9. Yeah. So you guys are pretty much in agreement, and it's Paris Johnson. That's who we'll put down on our score sheet here. And take it away, Neil, with your second round pick.
Yeah, so as I was saying, as I looked at the second round depth with both of these two positions of need, I felt a little bit more comfortable about defensive end, edge rusher, you know, type players as we got towards pick number 53. There's a lot of different ways that could go. I also factored in the possibility of some of these guys being available at you know, just 8 picks later, and a player like Adebawore being available at the back end of round 2 as well. But I think Adebawore would be available at the top end of 3 or the very tail end of 2 if we pass by him with the 53rd pick. So with the 53rd pick, if I look at this in a way of like Will McDonald slipping, I don't think he's going to be there at 53, but that would be an amazing place to find Will McDonald. There's some thought that he could potentially, slip that far with the situational guy that he is, and that would be an amazing pickup, I think, at 53. Incredible value for what he can do, what he can bring in terms of wreaking havoc in the backfield. If he's not there, I probably will go with either somebody like Keon White or Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Versatile guys that have a lot of motor, aggressive rushers, especially in terms of Keon White, somebody that could provide more position versatility as well as a guy that could kick inside on third down, but a guy that would play on the edge and would definitely suit the need at defensive end moving forward at pick 53.
Interesting pick there. Danny, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because we Neil didn't talk about this at all, and we've gotten the first 2 picks alike because my 53rd pick was Felix Anudike-Uzomah from Kansas State as well, because I don't think Will McDonald will be there at this point. As a matter of fact, there's talk that this kid might not even be there. That's how much he's impressed some teams in terms of in the one-on-one meetings and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy we talked about, edge presence. 255 is his weight, 6'3", 33 plus inch arm length. The Big 12 defensive lineman of the year, defensive player of the year. The guy just has that natural bend, the ability to get around the edge. He's got the explosion in his lower half. He's got the fluid hips to be able to, if you need him to drop back in coverage, this guy can, sink his hips and change direction. But yeah, he's a guy that for me would be the guy here, because again, we're talking about improving that pass rush. And if this falls the way Neil and I just drawed it up, first round, you took care of your tackle position. Second round, now with this first pick, you go ahead and take care of your edge guy. Now, he might not be a day one starter. We'll see how that all works. You might have to bring in a base guy, a base defensive end guy, just kind of guy, give you some more, run support on first and second downs, and until this guy fully develops into his frame and becomes a full-time player. But definitely a guy on passing down situations, third downs, you bring this kid in, just let him, pin his ear back and go after the quarterback. And you put on his Kansas State highlights. I mean, this kid is just, relentless in terms of his approach to the game and the way he rushes the passer. So yeah, if it comes off this way and it's Paris Johnson first round and then Felix Uzomah in the second round, I mean, Ryan Poles is off to a tremendous start.
The thing is that both Will McDonald and Felix are reportedly moving up draft boards, and they may not be available there late in the second round. So Poles might have to pull some magic to move up if he thinks he's going to lose any one of those players. Because Danny, you're high on Will McDonald, right?
I love Will McDonald. I absolutely love him. And that's why trading down from 9 to in the middle of the first round with a 50, keep an eye on Washington at 15 and keep an eye on Tampa Bay at 19, especially if one of the 4 quarterbacks drops. If you drop down on that range there, now you can play with things. Now you can, if you can take whatever of the 3 offensive linemen there, you can take possibly a Will McDonald there as well. So you have more flexibility. And then now I'm assuming you're going to recoup a second round pick. In whatever position you don't fill there, now you can, if you're Ryan Poles, you can jump either back up to the top of the second round or even possibly back down to the final few picks in the first round and get your other need that you need, whether it's a defensive tackle or an offensive lineman, depending on what you do not get with that first pick.
I think both of you guys like the kid out of USC, Tuli Tuopolola or something like that. If he is there at 53, would that be a steal? Because I think he could be there at 53 because he hasn't been working out. He's got what you tell me? He's got a hamstring injury, Danny, and so that's why he didn't work out at the combine. He didn't work out at his pro day, and so perhaps he's falling on some boards. This is an exciting player. What do you guys think?
You're jumping ahead. He's my pick at 61.
Well, okay, take it away at 61.
There you go.
Guys, when I watch the pass rushers in this draft, Tyree Wilson, Will McDonald, Uzuma, and then this kid, Tuipulotu are top there in terms of guys that really excite me in terms of how they fit in this scheme and what they bring. I think the reason why Tuli could possibly be here, obviously, we talked about, his hamstring issue. He hasn't been able to work out. But the other thing is he's a tweener. He's a guy that USC played as an edge, as a defensive end. I'm projecting him as an inside guy. Now, he came in at 266 pounds, which is very light for a 3 technique. But I always harken back to the days, and I wish Greg Gabriel was on here so we can talk about Henry Melton. Remember, he was a defensive end at Texas, and I think he was like 250 or 260 when the Bears drafted him. And by the time they were done with him, he was up to 280, and he was a 3 techniques. Now, this is the same trajectory, same track I see for Tuli here, and I just love this kid's motor, tenacity. Talk about production at the wazoo. 22 tackles for loss last year, 13 and a half sacks. And this kid has a motor, doesn't stop. He's got the NFL bloodlines, the safety, Tuafonga from the 49ers is his cousin. He's got everything you want in terms of what you're looking for, especially if you kick him inside. He's got that quick twitch ability as well. I love this kid. And if you can come out with Paris Johnson in the first round and these 2 kids in the second round, I think that's a great start for Ryan Poles and company.
Niel, go ahead and give us your 3rd round pick, and then we'll bring in Eric Edholm.
3rd pick, 61, right?
Correcto.
Yep. 8 places past where we picked before. Again, like I said, I look at this as we have a massive hole at tackle. We have a massive hole at defensive end. We also have several holes inside. We need to fortify. Really, the interior of the defensive line. We need immediate impact there. We need physical presence. We need production. In that sense, I thought that Adebawore from Northwestern, Tommy Adebawore. God, I'm turning it to you, Danny. What the hell?
Adebawore, that's a hard part.
Tommy Adebawore. I know, I'm getting it out. Jeez. Killing me.
Just call him Double A, man. That's all you got to do.
But I want to sound more sophisticated when I'm talking about these evaluations, so it seems like I know what I'm talking about, right? But Tommy Adebawore. Talked about him every single show so far this season of Draft on Tap. The kid isn't, in terms of size, he's like 6'1" and change, 280 plus. He's not massive, but the kid, he is an aggressive interior gap rusher that I think can make an immediate impact on a defensive line that sorely needs a physical, aggressive, powerful presence to fortify the interior. Again, we don't have depth. We have Justin Jones, who, again, I said was mildly productive last year. We have Andrew Billings, who's basically a run stuffer. We need a guy inside that can wreak some havoc, and I think Adebawore can be that guy. So 61 is where I'm going to go ahead and take him. Might be overdrafting him slightly, but when you find a guy that you really like, a guy that you're pounding the table for, a guy that you're going to have a spine about, you just go ahead and take him because you know that he's the guy that's going to fix the holes.
Well, if he's there at that pick, then it's a miracle. Wouldn't you say, Danny?
The one thing is I see him being projected in the first round, and I think that just a lot of these media guys just kind of pushing him up just only because of the fact that his workout was great, but I just think that you got to go back to the tape, and yes, he shows the quick twitch ability, the upfield burst and all that stuff, but production which wasn't there, and just to put him in the first round because of his combine workout, I just can't see that. I can't do that. I don't think NFL GMs will do that. So I think he's a guy that's more higher elevated because of the combine performance. With some of these media outlets, then I think that it is an actual NFL scout. So we'll see what happens. But in terms of being there at 61, we'll see. He's the guy that I've kind of pegged in that top to middle part of second round. So we'll see if he's going to be there.
Yeah,
I had him late 2, early 3 is where I had him.
Yeah, I think not only the combine, but his performance at the Senior Bowl, in particular, that viral video of him pushing Jaret Patterson back about 20 yards and just wrestling. He had some nice moments on the one-on-one drills at the Senior Bowl, and I think that's kind of lifted his reputation. But the Northwestern tape doesn't show a lot of great things that might merit a first-round pick. So let's get Eric Edholm's opinion on Adibore. I know I mispronounced that. I'm sorry. I didn't go to Northwestern. I went to Columbia College in Chicago.
All right. That's why I'm Columbia College.
Let's bring in Eric now. Eric, how are you, my friend?
Hey. I went to the other journalism school. I went to Mizzou. So don't expect me to give any kind of advanced pronunciations here. Right? I'm a state school guy, blue collar, meat and potatoes. So I'm doing great. It's great seeing you guys, and I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, this is your annual visit on Draft on Tap. We really appreciate your time. Tell us what's going on at NFL.com. How long have you been there now? Is it a year or 2 years?
Not quite a year. Yeah, it was July of last year that I started. So yeah, it's crazy. It's been a whirlwind. It's really been exciting. You know, everyone's been super kind and welcoming to me and thoughtful after I got the job and everything. So yeah, it's been a little different, you know, just from what I used to be doing at Yahoo, but probably 85-90% of my job is roughly the same. And this, you know, I'm still watching players, still kind of focusing on the NFL season during the season. And then I kind of shift to draft mode more fully in December or January, that time of year. So we're in it now, boys. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see you on Good Morning Football. I think that's going to be your next stop. I'm just predicting.
We'll see. I need you as my agent, man. I gotta get you promoting me out there. This is good. This is a good start.
This guy's speaking into existence, you know.
Exactly.
Send it out into the universe. It'll happen.
Exactly. Eric, I'm going to turn it over to the two experts here. Danny's going to start the questioning with you, and I'm going to go backstage and enjoy my whiskey.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Hey, Eric, man, it's, again, a pleasure. Thanks again for jumping on. It's
Sure.
always great. This is the best time of the year because we can talk draft, we can scout players, and then we can talk to Eric Edholm. So, that's always look forward to that. So, obviously, here the big talk here right now is with free agency kind of having started, and Ryan Poles and company kind of kicked that off, a couple weeks ago with that big trade with the Panthers. So, just curious, in terms of your thoughts on the return that Poles and how he played. Parlaying that first pick into multiple picks. Personally, me, I'm a little underwhelmed by the total return, but I'm curious to see what your thought is and what the overall league response is to what Ryan Poles did.
Yeah, I think the big reaction was to DJ Moore being included in the deal. That was one of those, I'm sure that Poles had a list of a couple players he would have accepted there. You imagine Brian Burns would have been one of them. I don't know if Derek Brown would have been one of them, but, certainly Ekwonu would have, could have been on that list. They have a couple of young players, obviously, that I think you would say are at least close to that. Not quite blue chip, but whatever that next level is. And DJ Moore, look, he fills a need and was productive with the Panthers quarterback situation, which, boy, in the last 4 years has turned a little bit ugly too. Chicago Bears fans know all about that, but certainly it's been no better or no worse, I don't think. If you look at kind of who they've run out there and you see what DJ Moore's been able to do. I think he's going to be a huge help for Fields. And yeah, you could argue that he probably could have gotten a higher draft pick return, but he may not have been able to get more. There may have been a give and take there that happened. And he kind of teased us there with the possibility that I'm sure you guys raised at some point. I thought of it, and like the double trade down, how cool would that be? It requires a lot of moving parts. And as I think he told Albert Breer, I don't remember exactly who Poles talked to, but kind of suggesting that, it's hard when you have three teams involved. They're all on different timetables. Some are going to slow play it. He made it sound like the Houston Texans got to drag their heels just a little bit. So, it was certainly a cool thing that could have happened, I guess. But I think they did pretty well for themselves. And at that number 9 spot, if what I'm hearing about, the quarterback interest that maybe 3, possibly 4 go ahead of that pick, then one of those top blue chip type prospects should be there for Poles if he wants to stay at 9.
Yeah, my thing with the trade is just, they got the lower end of the second round pick, the 61st pick, which I believe they got from Panthers got from the 49ers in the Christian McCaffrey trade. I wanted that pick 39. And I think they could have, because, and I know everyone goes off that trade chart, the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, but I think once a team goes up, especially 8 slots for a quarterback, I think you throw that chart off the water for a little bit. Yeah. But again, I think DJ Moore, you're right. I think that was the key there for Poles. And I think he came out and said it. And pretty much, if it wasn't DJ Moore, he probably already got 3 first-round picks from the Panthers. So I'm being a little picky. I'm being a little greedy. I like draft picks. So I just want more draft picks.
I get it. I hear you. Yeah, I mean, nice having all that ammo, right? Whether you use them, whether you trade them, whatever you do with them. I mean, it's great to have that flexibility, but I still think, and what do they have now? 9 to 11 picks this year
10.
now?
Yeah,
10.
picks
Okay.
right now,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot of choices this year, right? I mean, I get what you're saying about the higher selection in round 2, but, and, obviously you can look back and say the Claypool trade doesn't look great right now, but I feel like they weren't all that bothered by the price. I think they feel like a full off season hit with him together with Fields, and now you throw more into that mix, and maybe you have something kind of interesting because he's flashed some good ability at times.
So you mentioned the number 9 pick and the options that could be sitting out there. So my top, I love Tyree Wilson, and I don't think he's going to be there. So I think at this point now, I think polls will be open to business again, especially if one of those quarterbacks does drop. And I think I'm keeping my eye on like teams like Washington, possibly Tennessee. Even a team like the Buccaneers, maybe. I know they just signed Baker Mayfield, but have you heard anything in terms of the scuttlebutt, in terms of teams that are interested in that pick? If you had to guess right now, a couple weeks away from the draft, would you say the Bulls stays at number 9 and makes a selection, or you think it's a good chance he trades down again?
Well, let's first talk about the landscape a little bit too, not just what's below them, but who's right above them. 7, I almost said Oakland, Las Vegas, and number 8, Atlanta. Both those teams have done homework on quarterback. Sorry, guys, it's late. I'm losing my mind a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Atlanta especially has, I think, done a pretty deep dive from what I know, what I've been able to gather, is that they've done plenty of work on all the top quarterbacks. Now, some of this may be due diligence. They're going to ride it out with Ritter and who did they sign? Heineke. And, just if it doesn't work, okay, then you're in the Williams or May, sweepstakes for next year, right? Those guys arguably could be better prospects than anybody in this draft quarterback wise. So, you could see it both ways. And the Raiders, okay, they signed Jimmy Garoppolo. What do they need a quarterback for? Well, Jimmy does have an injury history that's pretty notable. So, and if you look at the contract, it's essentially a 1-year deal. I mean, if they want to keep him longer, that certainly is possible, but and they could rework it to keep him around as a backup, much like they did in San Francisco with Jimmy last year. But yeah, that to me feels like bridge quarterback type contract. Don't get fooled by the 3 years in the full money and all that. And so yeah, I mean, I could see either one of those teams possibly looking into a quarterback. As you pointed out, if there isn't, let's say Will Levis, I'm just going to pick him just for argument's sake. It does lose a little bit of the trade potency, I think, in terms of interest in moving up. But I suppose there could be a special player that, I'm trying to think, maybe the first offensive tackle, maybe the first receiver, maybe the first or second corner, so there's still some premium spots, I think, that could garner that interest. But 2 of those 3 positions, I would say, you could make a case the Bears still could use one of those guys. So it's a tough call on whether he gets good offers, any offers, or whether he ends up standing pat at number 9.
Now, your second mock hasn't come out yet. I haven't seen it yet. So who do you have Bears taking at number 9?
I think I have him with Paris at 9. I think if I remember correctly. Yeah, I did it a couple days ago and turned it in, and it's getting sent through the editing grinder right now. But yeah, I'm almost positive. I don't want to say the wrong name, but I'm pretty sure that's who I gave him at 9. And I think that was my first offensive lineman off the board. And, I mean, I think I was shocked at how tall he was. I thought I had in my mind that he was a 6'5" guy, and he's over 6'6" and has those 36-inch arms and everything. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. You guys can tell me. I didn't watch every game he played, obviously. I watched a little of him at guard from 2021 just to see, hey, what does it look like? But I watched 3 full games of him and part of a 4th. I haven't gotten to the end of it yet, but the only little stretch where he got in any trouble was the first half against Georgia. And he rebounded and played pretty well in this, after that point. The team kind of started failing, but I thought he held up pretty well. So a little bit in that Georgia game where you saw him give up pressures that he wasn't giving up in other games, but I see a young kid. First of all, he's got a lot of charisma. The Ohio State connection is great and all, but that to me, that doesn't matter that much. But I just think, I think when it's all said and done, he has a chance to be the best offensive lineman of this group. Broderick Jones interests me because, boy, you think how young he is, and he's just starting to kind of scratch the surface. I don't know. Do you guys have strong opinions on the tackle group, or Skoronski? Is he outside for you, or what?
Well, Skoronski, I love Skoronski, but he's a guard for me. I can't see him playing at that left tackle position or even right tackle. Yeah, for me, coming in, I like Jones a little bit better, just because I think he was stronger at the point of attack than Paris Johnson. However, 19 career starts. You talked about it, only 1 year starter. I think he's got some more. Learning some more technique work. And I think Paris Johnson, having played the right side, 2 years ago, having the familiarity in that right-handed stance, I'm going to want to put him at right tackle. So I think that kind of, and then you talked about his dimensions, his size, his length. He's athletic. I think he's a better pass blocker than a run blocker right now, Paris Johnson.
I agree.
So I think that's going to kind of fit in. But again, he's not a finished product, but I think that's why gave him the edge over Jones for me. And that's why I think the Bears, if they stay at number 9, I think that could be their pick there. The other guy that really intrigues me, and I'm sure everyone's intrigued by him, is Jalen Carter. I know that the off the field stuff, and it's out there, it's percolating, and he's going to drop, right? But do you think he makes it to number 9? Because if he's sitting there at number 9, and I'm Ryan Poles, I mean, put this kid's tape on, and when he's on, he's a beast in the middle of that defensive line.
Yeah.
But the thing is, which one are you going to get? Are you going to get the Jalen Carter versus LSU, or are you going to get the Jalen Carter versus Ohio State that was getting tired, halfway through this, through the second quarter? So, what do you heard about Jalen Carter, and how far do you think he'll drop?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I've asked around a little bit, and obviously teams are doing their homework, the pro day situations. One guy kind of said, look, I can't imagine if I was 21 years old or what have you, and having to deal with the court situation hanging over his head and all that. And okay, you make a fair point, but to be completely out of shape in like 2 weeks' time, that's a little bit concerning right there. He is a young guy. I mean, he's not even 22 years old yet. So, you can cut him a little bit of slack. There was some questions, there was a little incident with Quay Walker last year, and I think he's a fiery kid, and I think he's an immature kid on some level, but I could tell you I was immature into my 30s, so it's how you define it, right? And how much, I mean, there are lots of immature players in the NFL. We all know this. Like, I'm not saying anything that isn't, I mean, you have guys who come into the go from college into this really strange world of the NFL. And sometimes you make bad decisions, and you have money, and you do things that are out of character, whatever. Other guys can handle it right away. Teams know this, and they're going to weigh all that in. Obviously, lying to police is something that is probably going to require, the accusation of this, right? I want to be careful what I say, but the suspicion of misleading police and getting charged with the 2 misdemeanors at a fatal crash. This is serious business. So this isn't just, he's a young kid making dumb mistakes. No, there's more to it. There's some real responsibility here. What if that happens when he's on an NFL team? So I think him being picked probably requires ownership approval. I think, if you're picking him in the top 10, the teams that make the most sense, Seattle has always had a little bit of moral flexibility, I guess, with with character guys, and certainly could use another interior force. And I've thought about Detroit, certainly the tackle. I think they want to add one more guy on the defensive line. Brad Holmes is a good judge of character. I'm sure, he's a Georgia guy. I'm sure he's got great connections that he can, trust and feel like, he can tap into there. Las Vegas, look, it's the wild card team. Who knows what direction they're going to go? Are they rebuilding? Are they, so I think it's maybe a 50-50 chance, or a little less, that he's there at 9 if enough teams feel good about it. But I haven't been able to get a great sense as to whether he's calmed everybody's fears about this situation.
So every year there's a player that's always mocked or projected to go high in the first round, and for whatever reason, whether it's off the field or some medical stuff or things that we haven't heard about, this six has plummeted down the draft boards. And minus Jalen Carter, just kind of removing him from the equation, who is the player they think could possibly, we're seeing, and everyone's talking about him going high, but you could see him just because of circumstances, because of the way the board could fall, kind of plummeting down, maybe, late first round, maybe even out of the first round?
Good question. Let me think. Jalen Hyatt, some of the receivers I think are being a little bit overhyped in my opinion. I could be wrong about at least one of them. Jordan Addison's size, you have to be okay with that, and 166 pounds is pretty small. That was a low number for me. Jalen Hyatt obviously runs well and is a great vertical threat, but you have to understand he's got kind of a limited box of tools. He's got one really amazing tool, but I don't know, does he have the full package? Is he going to be a Will Fuller type player where he just switches teams every couple of years as sort of a hired gun, right? But those are two that I'm not necessarily convinced land in round one. Let me try to think of some other good ones that Brian Brzee from Clemson. I know some teams have already kind of flagged him medically and said that there might be some concern there, or at least they're going to, wait. I mean, obviously tested well in Indianapolis. It's not necessarily like, oh, he's still hurt. It's the fact that he's had, multiple injuries and the scans may not have come back clean. I don't know, so that's one that comes to mind. Drew Sanders, the linebacker from Arkansas. I think some teams really are sort of fascinated by him, but don't know exactly what to do with him. Brian Branch at Bama, he's a really smart, heady player and a kind of guy that every team wants, but sometimes those players will slip because they don't have incredible measurables and numbers and testing numbers. It just, they're maybe pigeonholed into a position when you get him and you find out, oh, he can do more than what he did at Alabama. So he's one that I wouldn't be shocked if there's a little bit of slippage. And then, so I've seen Luke Musgrave round one. I don't think he cracks round one if I had to guess. Keon White, Georgia Tech you've seen him high on some lists. He's an older guy who's only played defense for a couple years and still viewed as an upside guy. I get a little leery about the 24-year-olds who are viewed as the upside players. Just me. I mean, I don't know if other teams do or what, but so those are a few off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm missing a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. Eric, very similar question, but the converse, right? Is there anybody out there that you're hearing who could go high or much higher than expected, than mocked, that nobody is talking about right now?
Well, nobody's a tough one, right? That's like Cole Strange would have been our pick for last year, I guess. The only one
who's set on ice right now. Who's just hanging out?
Yeah, let me think here. Gosh, it's probably. I mean, I'm trying to. It's hard for me to know because I don't read a ton of mock drafts. So this is just me. I don't want to be biased when I do mine, so I don't want to read 5 or 6 of them right before I write one, and then. Oh, I just saw this guy drafted Miles Murphy for the team. I'm going to put him in there too. I try not to look at him very often, to be honest. So it's
if I can
hard.
chime in real quick. Hendon Hooker goes in the first round. A team might want to just kind of take him for that 5th-year option and just kind of.
That would be the reason. Yeah, that's the only reason. It's great to have the 5th-year option, but you're going to have the first-year red shirt. I mean, essentially, right? I mean, he could play. He could be available. By October, November. That would have been. 11 months removed from the injury against South Carolina. So I don't know. I really like the quarterback, but I think you kind of put him in that same day 2 range. This is how I view him. But again, yeah, if there's an early run on quarterbacks, could there be a team like Detroit that says, yeah, we've kind of mismanaged the backup spot and we'll draft him and sign a veteran as well. Yeah, I could see that. Or, yeah, I think you guys mentioned Tampa Bay is sort of a wild card quarterback team. Maybe. Yeah. Washington. Sure. But I think it would be in the last couple of picks of round one, maybe trading into round one, much like we saw with Lamar, Teddy Bridgewater, other guys have been in that spot in the past. So I don't know. I saw, and again, I think Daniel Jeremiah is great at what he does, my colleague at NFL Media, but I saw him mock him to the Vikings, and I just couldn't get behind it. So the age, the injury question, the offense he comes from, there's some roadblocks you got to get past.
Yeah, I thought the same thing actually. I was thinking about, what are the possibilities that Hendon? I mean, you think about it. If had he not gotten hurt, number one, probably would have been a shoo-in for the Heisman. Number
Could have,
two,
yeah.
probably would be one of these guys that we're talking about going in the top 10 right now. Right?
And that's a fair question. Yeah. I mean, I guess would we be as hung up on the age factor? It would definitely come up, right? We've talked about Bryce Young's size every day since November. We've talked about the fact that CJ Stroud has only been a scrambler in one game, essentially, right? Or whatever. We kind of hone on whatever the big thing is for each quarterback. And I suppose the age would have been certainly the biggest one. And then the next would have been, hey, I mean, he's coming from this Josh Heupel offense, a lot of clean looks and wide open situations. So, I wonder, what would have his draft fate been? I think he very well could have been in the first round mix, but you got to weigh in the injury.
Yeah, hear that. Every year there always seems to be something that shakes everything up. Chaos ensues. Makes GMs kind of scramble with their draft boards a little bit, toss their hands up in the air, those different types of things. Can you project anything that could possibly shake up everything in front of the Bears right now to make Brian Poles start to second guess some possible decisions he could be making?
Yeah, with the gas mask, smoking bong coming out.
If anyone could have predicted that happening, I'd want to sit close to them for the rest of their lives too. I don't know if there's that kind of nuclear situation. I guess Anthony Richardson going first would be like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like that would kind of just set the ball rolling for the draft, and everybody there would be a buzz, and I'll be out there for the first. I haven't been to the draft since Philly in 17 or whatever. So this will be my first year going back since then. And I hope something like that happens. I love chaos. I hope my mock drafts are terribly wrong, right? Because what's the fun otherwise? So that would be a big one. Obviously, some team trading into the top 3-4 picks with, going into that Arizona spot, let's see at number 3, that we're not seeing. It's even hard to come up with somebody, but you never know, right? I mean, Washington has been sort of selling us on, hey, Sam Howell's going to get first reps. And I mean, I suppose they could be there. They didn't make a play on Lamar. Is it possible they have some quarterback that they're in love with and they could move up? Sure. But, Carter falling obviously could create some interesting debates on the clock. But Bijan going high, what if somebody just says, screw the analytics, forget the narrative. You can't take it back in round 1. I'm taking this guy. I love him. And, I guess it's possible that obviously would change the landscape quite a bit as well.
Well, what about Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard just sitting there and at the last minute putting in this huge offer to Lamar Jackson right before the draft and just kind of shaking the whole NFL landscape and see what happens there? I think that's something that, because they're very quiet and you don't hear anything from the Colts. Yeah. Even though Irsay was out there initially talking about, how good Bryce Young looked and how he would grade up
being
and all
very
that
loud, and all of a sudden just
it's quiet. and I would have put it past Chris Ballard to pull some, because I think now, obviously, I think you can confirm this, Eric. They were active in terms of trying to get up there with the Bears to get that first pick. And I think now seeing how things kind of fallen, I don't know if he's going to be wanting to there. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll take the third best quarterback or fourth best quarterback and be happy with it. But that's I have a feeling Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay are up to something. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It's fascinating because look, I mean, Chris is and obviously he's got Bears connections. I'm sure people in Chicago know the name and know him and remember his time here. And he's obviously got connections to Poles, and I'm sure that friendship could lead to some deals at some point. But it didn't happen the first time around. The Lamar thing, we haven't really got any leaks on whether teams have been contacting him, or at least I haven't seen any. I don't know. I haven't been able to confirm anything like that. And Chris is they're coming off this horrible year where Jeff Saturday was thrown into the head coaching spot, and Matt Ryan was a disaster, and the backup quarterbacks were a disaster, and the defense was bad, and Jonathan Taylor got hurt, and it was just a snowball effect there. It was crazy. And so the people there are fed up. If them blowing a playoff spot last year was bad, I mean, you can't imagine that Ballard isn't on anything but the hot seat. And I love Chris, and I think, I hope to see him in the league making picks for years to come. But the reality is, who the owner is, and he's already had a 2 sit downs with Reich and Ballard 1 year, and now Ballard in year 2. So it's going to be I think. Do they trade up to 1 and say, all right, Carolina, we'll pay whatever you want to have? Do they move up to 3 and give up something smaller and get, like you said, possibly the 3rd best quarterback and have to give up assets to do that? It's a tough sell. Or do you stand pat and watch somebody pass you? But there is that break glass in case of emergency option with Lamar. I mean, does it feel like it's going to happen? I don't know, but that would be fun. I've been saying, like, why either you do it right before the draft and put them in a bind, or you wait till after the draft and then you're using next year's picks, or make an offer at that point to Baltimore to sign them. So I believe there's a deadline on it. Like, I don't even remember what the deadline is, to be honest. A week before the draft? Oh, no. It's July for him to sign an extension, correct?
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So,
that up.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. Check me if I'm wrong, though. Yeah.
The thing about it is, I'm with you. Big Ballard fan, got the pom-poms out, the whole deal. I just don't think that outfit is in position to take any more chances. I think they have to, go balls to the wall. Either go get Lamar, or at worst trade up to 2, which that's going to be a tough thing. The Texans aren't going to trade, allow a division rival to come in on them. So you figure they have to go up to 1, right?
I think so. And I think Carolina's in this weird spot where everybody assumes, well, they must know who they want. My best read of the situation at 1 is that they went in feeling really good about 1. Like, if we're the draft for tomorrow, we probably take this guy, which I think is CJ Stroud, but I could be wrong. Could be Bryce Young. Bryce Young. I don't think it's Will Levis, but Anthony Richardson, I think, interests them. I think they bought themselves some time, right? They get the pick and they say, all right, we could stay there or we could move back, but let's do some work on this Anthony Richardson kid and decide, is he better than, in my theory, Stroud? And if we think Richardson's better, then we're tempted by a trade down and maybe rolling the dice a little bit. I don't know that it's, it would be some crazy poker if they played it that way, but they might have to prepare to move back up to number 3. And what a story that would be, them bouncing all over the top 10 to finally land, their quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. They had 11 coaches or 11 personal representatives, or combination of,
is that right?
Those 2 things at the pro day today?
At Stroud's thing? Yeah, I didn't know it was 11. I knew they sent a full contingent, but I thought, boy, if a team sends more than 4, that's usually a full house. So that's telling, but they're going to, the bulk of them, I imagine, are going to go to, the next 2 days. We have both Kentucky or Alabama tomorrow, Kentucky on Friday, and then on the 30th we have Florida. So I think they're going to go to all 4.
Yeah. Any scuttlebutt over there in NFL media land about any mannerisms, facial expressions, any thoughts or feelings about what those Carolina Panthers people were thinking about CJ Stroud today?
Hard to know. My colleague Nick Shook, who lives in Ohio, went up there. I still haven't read his piece yet. I was about to check it out, and then I realized we were getting close to the showtime. So I don't know if he made any mentions of that. I was only able to, see little bits and pieces of it today. But yeah, I don't know. And obviously at those pro days, sometimes you see, if you have a GM going to 4 different pro days of 4 different quarterbacks, we have no idea, right? But if you see, certain people skip 1 or 2 workouts, you might think, okay, that's kind of interesting to note. It's always a tricky game to play. Like, ooh, did they look really interested or not? The one time it felt like it was obvious was at Zach Wilson's pro day, of all people, right? It felt like those guys you could almost see them going, wow, on the sideline or whatever. And we know how that one's gone so far. So.
Yeah.
Well, that was a circus, though, but
it was, yeah.
We
were all coming out of COVID. Everybody was a little kooky back then, right?
Yeah,
it was like the first
we still are, though.
I know, yeah.
Speaking of pro days, though, Has anybody really popped off at their own individual pro day? Any sleepers that have recently emerged? Any names out there for us to keep an eye on? Any interesting storylines?
Well, a couple of numbers that I noted the other on Twitter, and I mean, I know I'm not giving you much secret information here or whatever, but Ronnie Bell is significantly improving his 3-cone time. Kind of we're in Big Ten country here, and he's a neat little receiver. He's not a big guy, but he's got a big heart, and he's a tough kid for his size, and he's a neat kid. I got to talk to him a little in Mobile. I don't know if you guys saw him, got to spend any time with him down there, but I think he could end up being a really good third receiver for some team, and he made a big improvement on his 3-cone time, which I think will bump him up into that 4th, 5th round range. He was sort of in that 5-6, I would guess, if I had to, take a crack at it before day 3, somewhere in the middle there. Andre Carter from Army, he was coming off 15.5 sack season 2021. People were putting him in the first round of their mocks this year. I knew that wasn't going to be the case even before he had just an okay season, I would say. But when you saw him at the Senior Bowl, he had some tough reps down there. You could see the strength wasn't there, right? He's a good athlete, and he rebounded a couple times, but still, this is kind of a long, lean guy who's, still got some rawness to him. The strength is going to take probably a full year or more to kind of get up to speed. And yet, he turned in a pretty darn good 3-cone time as well, under 7 seconds the other day. And, I know he didn't run amazingly well, but, did enough, I think. And he's going to be in that, boy, do you use a top 100 pick on a pass rush project who may not give you much year one? Well, David Njoku, went 45th. How do you weigh that a little bit? I think he's borderline top 100. So he's a name player. It'll be Army's highest pick in a million years, but I think he's going to have to wait a little bit, even with some of the promising athletic traits that he has. I think teams won't be able to get a whole lot of him out of him as a rookie.
So we already touched on receivers, obviously, in our previous conversation, and also we kind of touched on it with Ronnie Bell. But going back, looking at the draft history, there's always it seems like day 2, second, third round is where these stud receivers come out of. To talk about DK Metcalf, T. Higgins,
AJ Brown, right.
People Samuel, all these guys, and even though the Bears have picked up, kind of looping us back to the Bears here, even though they got DJ Moore, and they seem to have a nice core there with Claypool and Mooney and Moore. Claypool, Mooney are going into the last year of their contract. So I just feel like they still need to draft a receiver. So obviously they're not going to do it in first. I don't think they're going to do it in the second round, but who's your day 2, possibly day 3 receiver that you feel real good about in terms of either you see his tape or you've seen him at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And just feel like this kid has a chance to be, if given the right opportunity, put in the right situation, could be that next guy that pops off, and has a name for himself at the receiver position.
Yeah, somebody who I feel like, and he was a little quiet down in Mobile, but somebody I feel like hasn't gotten any buzz whatsoever is Rashee Rice. And I don't know, I like him as a football player. I think he's a good player. I think he looks like a top 50 pick to me by my eyes. That's not what I'm hearing necessarily, but I just sort of feel like even though there's some consistency issues, he's a little bit lean. He looks like he can kind of be coasting out there sometimes. And, I don't know. I mean, some people, I had a guy tell me he liked, area scout who's gone through the school for years down there. He said, I don't know. I thought Danny Gray was better. So I'm kind of conflicted on him a little bit, but if he can max out his speed when he play just a little faster and maybe add a little bit of weight, I think I'd like him a little more, but he's got some ability that I think it's just natural. Trey Tucker is interesting. Well, both Cincinnati receivers for that matter. I mean, I think Tyler Scott is a more polished player. Tucker is more of the maybe a little bit more speed just to take the top off of defense. But Tyler Scott, I like a lot. Marvin Mims had a really good combine workout. He was a player that I hadn't watched enough of. I think he's one to keep an eye on for the Bears. I could see Marvin Mims being a Bears type player.
That was my guy, actually. That was my
Is it
guy.
really? Oh yeah, there you go.
Mims, yeah.
Yeah, nice player. I mean, it's funny because I'd watched a lot of Oklahoma, but I hadn't really sort of focused on him. And he caught my eye a little bit. He's not big, he's, under 6 foot and, the arm length is just okay and everything, but he's got kind of a lean frame. But you can run 4.4 and you can vertical jump 40 inches and show enough quickness, I think, and average almost 20 yards a catch in college, even with last year was a tough year for the Sooners and Dylan Gabriel's a little up and down and whatnot, but he's smooth, man. I like him a lot.
Yeah. And then obviously talking about the NFC North, I mean, the big talk here is, the possible of Aaron Rodgers leaving the division. Everyone's excited, but I got news for a lot of Bears fans. The Detroit Lions are going to be bad news. Bad news. The kneecap biters of Dan Campbell. I mean, the one thing that surprised me is they're coming off that great year. I think they had a tremendous start to free agency. And I think you talked about potentially Jalen Carter going there, maybe a Tyree Wilson. That's going to be even more devastating. But what really kind of put me over the top with them was how did they get CJ Gardner-Johnson on a 1-year deal?
Yeah, that's less money than Philly offered. Yeah.
Right. And his market just didn't develop. And that really just threw me off. I was hoping the Bears would make a play for him because they need more of a slot corner than they do at safety. But the versatility he gives you, the added, like the swagger, that what he brings to that defense, I think that was a big element that Philly had last year with him there that they're going to miss this year. So, Detroit overall, your impressions and then just the market for Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah, I think if people pick them less than second place next year, cops are going to show up at their door, right? They're going to be America's team, all right, if they're not already. I mean, first of all, they didn't have Jameson Williams last year. I mean, they did at the end, but I mean, he touched the ball twice all season, right? You hope he's going to give you something. They add Montgomery, and I know Jamal Williams was a locker room favorite, but look, Montgomery's I think a better talent. I think David's a better running back overall. They're at the point where their roster is so much better than it was when Brad Holmes took over. I mean, we would talk about, here are the 6 or 7 positions the Lions need to upgrade. Now it's like, well, you need a tight end. You could use another body there. Certainly a starting caliber guy would be nice. You could add another corner, but you got Sutton and everything, and that's pretty good. And maybe a linebacker for a little depth or, another defensive lineman. I think interior certainly, but man, to have the rookie class they did and really not get much out of the Kentucky kid, who I'm blanking on his name, the pass rusher, Josh
Pascal.
Thank you. I couldn't think of it. Yeah. Didn't get anything out of Williams to speak of. Still haven't gotten much out of Anza Ruwike there, the Levi defensive tackle from Washington they drafted a couple years ago. So, I mean, if some of these other guys develop too, think about the number of second and third and fourth year players on the roster to add to some of these CJ Gardner-Johnsons and Suttons and everything. And they got the 6th pick, the 18th pick and an early second too. So it's like, man, if Jared Goff falls off, obviously that's a worry. That's why I think quarterback could still be in play for them too. I don't know, at 6 doesn't feel right, but possibly at 18, or if they trade down, and certainly with that early second round pick, hey, maybe Brad just says, I'll make the Hendon Hooker pick with that second rounder. I'll trade into the first, and we've had so much draft ammo, I can give up a little extra to go get him. I don't know, just playing around with ideas, but they're fun.
Yeah, I've heard that they could possibly punt on that second pick, trade it, and then get a first-round pick for next year's draft, have 2 first-round picks for next year. Now, if Jared Goff does take a dip, now you're in the Caleb Williams, Drake, Drake May, conversation as well. So they are a team that's up and coming, and they are going to be, in my opinion, the kings of the NFC North. So we'll see how it plays out. But.
Buy stock now. Yeah, right.
Hey, corners, Eric. Interestingly enough, that was one position that Poles hinted at a couple months ago, probably a press conference, that he would address that this offseason. I mean, and you look at our depth chart. That's another position where we definitely could go ahead and use an immediate contributor, some depth, some quality. In terms of where in this draft you think the run on corners would be, what would be like the money range to go ahead and get a guy that could come in here and produce immediately?
Yeah, I think there's a chance that Detroit at 6, possibly, Atlanta at 8, maybe. I know they have AJ Terrell, but they could put another guy with him. So there's, I think, 2 spots ahead of them, unless I'm not thinking of the right. I suppose it depends on what happens with the Cardinals, because the corner's been a spot that they've ignored for a few years. So depending on where they trade down to, I suppose they could be one to watch as well. Maybe Seattle, but they drafted 2 last year and got a lot out of both guys. I don't know. So there's at least 2, maybe as many as 4 spots where the first corners could start going off. So, is Christian Gonzalez there? Is Devin Witherspoon there? Is Joey Porter Jr. there for Chicago? I don't know. And then you start thinking maybe more second round. And, we mentioned Branch. I see him as a nickel, most likely, but he can also play safety. I don't think you want to play him at outside corner. So I put him in that category, sort of. Emmanuel Forbes, really fascinating guy, super lean, high production, incredible, like pick six in his college career, I think.
Has an FBS record.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And he doesn't. If you thought, Sauce Gardner was skinny last year, like this dude is way skinnier. So he's going to be a fascinating one. Kind of the hot name, or not hot name, I should say a name that's kind of been thrown around a little, is Terrell Smith from Minnesota. I've heard him mentioned a little bit more. Depends how much you like Keely Ringo from Georgia. Is he a safety in your mind? Is he a corner? Do you just love the athleticism and say, we're patient, we'll teach him? There's DJ Turner, who had the 40-yard king in Indy and, had a good season as well. Good lateral quickness. He looks like a slot to me, if I had to guess. I think Deonte Banks probably is gone in the top 40, maybe first round. So hard to know. Julius Brent's longer kid. A lot of teams met with him at the combine. He had like 15 meetings, I want to say. So he was a popular name. He went down to Mobile, had a nice solid week down there. Cam Smith. I'm just trying to. Clark Phillips is another one,
Love
so
Clark Phillips.
The depth at this corner group is really good. I just don't remember a class where, I'm not saying that we have 10 all pros in this group, but I think there's a lot of people in this year's class.
Darius Rush from South Carolina.
Yeah, Rush, the other South Carolina. Yeah. Tyreek Stevenson's another guy from Miami who's gotten some buzz too. Oregon State kid, right? Is somebody the West Coast scouts have mentioned a couple times. So I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple, but those are some of the names that are in that day too. Oh, Garrett Williams, Syracuse is another one I just thought of. Yep. He could be Eli Ricks. What do you do with him? He looked like a first round pick his freshman year. And now he's had 2 years where he's been injured and doesn't look like he fits. And I don't know. So he's a wild card for sure.
Amazing depth there. You just rattled off, 10, 15, 20 names, and all of them can't go before the Bears come up with another pick that we don't know where they're going to go with it. I kind of feel like they're going to go, tackle, edge, D tackle, first 3 picks in no particular order. And then after that, it's like, okay, where are we going next? All these guys can't go before pick 64.
I know.
So
they're
going to have a possibility to get a guy that could compete right away, I feel.
When you look 3-dimensionally at these drafts and you realize, we'd love to have our first, second, or third corner on our team. Absolutely would. But when you think D tackle's super thin, right? It'd be nicer to get one of the top 3 at that position, because the difference between the third D tackle and the 10th D tackle is massive. The difference between the third corner and the 10th corner, not massive in my opinion. A round difference maybe, or a round and a half at the most. So that's a debate that I think every team has to have at certain spots this year. And tackle's got some depth, but corner I think is more loaded.
Eric, you have done such a fantastic job. People in the chat room are raving about your appearance here today. I got to tell you, I am going to call the folks over at Good Morning Football, and I'm going to ask them, first of all, to take a look at your demo reel, which I believe is still on YouTube.
Oh, really? Wow. I didn't even know I had a demo reel. Oh, dude, that's great.
I think you did something for the WTTW show.
Yes. Oh, my God. That's funny you mentioned that. I actually my wife and I were just talking about that probably 3 weeks ago. I hadn't thought about it in 7 or 8 years, but I filmed that at the old Pro Football Weekly in Riverwoods, which I just happened to drive by the other day. It's some other business now, but we had this little tiny video room, and I saw the job was opening. PFW was about to go under, and I told our video producer, I said, "Can we throw a little 1-minute video together here? And I want to try to get this what's it called? Check please, right?
Yeah. Give me the check please or check please. Yeah. You would have been perfect for that show, but I think you're better for Good Morning Football. I'm going to call them up, negotiate a deal for you, and I'm also going to tell them they have to change that set. It is the ugliest set on any football talk show in America. I mean, that thing is so many lines going and people wearing weird clothing. You
don't like the pinball machine there? You don't like
the pinball machine? I would keep. It's just all the brick and the line in the bricks and the graphics are ugly. It needs a Aldo Gandia makeover.
Well, do me a favor. When you call him on my behalf, don't mention any of that stuff. Okay? That will not go over well. You understand?
We can negotiate in his contract to go ahead and
Eric will come on. However, here's his
Promise.
rider. Yeah.
Promise. Eric, tell people how they can watch your work, see your read your writing, and interact with you on Twitter.
Yeah, the Twitter handle is Eric with a C _ Edholm EDHOLM, and NFL.com. That's it. I'll have a couple pieces up this week and maybe 3. I don't know. Geez. So
look at all this work that you've been doing.
Wow,
you're knocking out 4 stories.
When I do my new shifts, I'll let you know I crank out 3 or 4 in a couple hours. But yes, for draft related stuff. So. But yeah, it's always great coming on with you guys. Love talking Bears. Love talking draft with you guys. You obviously follow it better than I think every other host I've been on a show with to this point. Not to, so that's very I appreciate it. So you know what you're saying, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, you live in the Chicago area. Maybe one of these days the 4 of us can go have a beer together.
Yeah. Maybe just one. What are we doing here? Let's go.
Well, I'm paying for one.
All right. There you go.
Neil's paying for the rest of them.
I would love to.
I need more paychecks, man.
I'll buy the first round, you cheap bastards.
All right, that's what we love.
I'll buy 2 rounds.
There you go.
There we go. We got 3 rounds already. Here we go.
And I'll pay for the Uber ride home.
Yes, Eric, I love your work. Keep up the great work. We really appreciate you taking your time out tonight and just jumping on with us. And hey, man, enjoy KC and have some barbecue for us, huh?
I will. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to the I've got the World War I museum before I start working. I've got the Negro League Baseball Museum. I've got some barbecue places lined up. I haven't been to KC. I went to Mizzou, but I haven't been to KC in 15 years. So I'm pumped. I love that city.
Can I stick in one Mizzou question real quick?
Yeah.
Sure.
Isaiah McGuire. I really like this kid.
Yeah.
From Mizzou, a defensive end. I was one of the first ones that mentioned Aldo. I'm like, this kid really intrigues me. I mean, the dimensions. Obviously still a little raw around the edges. Is he a day 3 guy? You think he can sneak in day 2? Where do you see him at?
Yeah, probably more day 3 if I had to guess. And
then defensive end or outside linebacker, you think?
Question. Yeah, I think probably DN, but some teams may want to move him a little bit. It's hard to say, So, he Jim Nagy really liked him. I know he didn't have the most explosive Senior Bowl week ever or whatever, but I thought, a really good looking kid off the cuff and long arms and it's shockingly small hands. That was it was like 8.5-inch hands or something like that. You think, God, a guy's that big, but yeah, I mean, I think you see flashes of what he could be. A little bit of quickness, power, disruptive ability, handwork, but I felt like he did kind of guess a lot, and there were sometimes he was out of position, but boy, I think, again, watching them almost every week in the college season, he was their most reliable D lineman. I mean, you just sort of felt like you trusted him to set a hard edge as hard as he could, and use his length and always find a way to kind of get in the backfield. So yeah, I think it may have been, maybe it was Lance Zierlein, who works with me at NFL.com. I think he compared him to Preston Smith. And I thought, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. Like, yeah, that makes some sense. I don't know he's quite that good on 2 feet, but I could see a similar production at some point.
Yeah, I was really high on him going into Senior Bowl. And then obviously, like I said, Senior Bowl week, he was a little bit yeah. So we'll see. But definitely, like I said, earmarking pass rushers, edge guys. 3 techniques for the Bears. So those are he's on my list in terms of him and Yaya Diaby from Louisville.
Diaby really caught my eye. Yeah, I was surprised. He's a player I didn't do enough work on or whatever, and I just thought I'll get to him eventually, and that I had no excuses. So yeah, he looks like a Packer to me. I'd hate to say it to you guys, but I feel like he looks like the kind of guy that they look for. So just saying, keep in mind,
You're right. He does look like a Packer. I hate to say it too, but Eric, we'll let you go. And again, many thanks, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
All right, fellas. Have a great night.
See you. Appreciate you, brother.
He is Eric Edholm. You got to follow him on Twitter. He is such a great guy. And now we're going to have some beers with him. So that's going to be even great. I'll have the camera rolling just to capture some sound and share it with all of our jealous barflies. Guys, before we get out of here, let's just talk in generalities about the Chicago Bears team. Niel, I'll start with you. What do you think? What would you like to see Ryan Poles do before the draft? So, for instance, Yannick Ndukwe, he is perhaps considered the best defensive lineman available in free agency. Do you think that Poles should open up that wallet and ensure that he gets him? Because, I'm worried about this defensive line, and the draft is not going to answer all questions. We've got to find somebody. What do you think, Niel? What should Poles do? Focus on Yannick or do something else?
Well, I think that you got to shake the tree and see what falls of all of these positions that we have open right now. There's not a whole lot of right tackles out there that really excite me right now. The defensive line, as you said, is probably the most concerning. If you talk about functional bodies across the front and then also depth, there's nothing inside. And then your backups on the outside are young guys. They're guys with ceilings. Dominique Robinson's really young. And, Gibson's, still there. I'm not sure how well he fits anymore with the current scheme, but, with Walker, Justin Jones, and Andrew Billings, those are pretty much the guys you're relying on right now. So I think that's definitely the area of this team right now that needs the most work by volume. And if you can get a highly, productive, highly functional body in there and use some of those resources that we have at our disposal, definitely shake the tree and see what you can figure out.
What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, that's a name. That's a great name you brought up there, Aldo, with Yannick. I mean, he's a guy, again, we know what the issue is. He's a guy that's been on different teams, and we know why. It's because he does one thing well, and that's rush the passer. He's not a run stopper. So he pretty much, I think he's now, kind of made himself into a situational pass rusher, a guy you can use on, passing down. So, he might not fulfill your need in terms of, day one, a week one starter just to be out there because, in terms of run defense, or maybe you could, kind of work around it. We'll see. But yeah, he's the more established pass rusher out there. And right now, again, you just need to get some pass rush on this football team. And what it does is if you get a guy like Yannick, and I think it'll be a 1-year contract. I'm not sure what he's looking for, but just get him. At least you have a edge guy you can rely on to give you 8 to 9 sacks, possibly 10.5 sacks a season or next year. So now you can that's one you don't remove the need necessarily of defensive end, but you don't have the added pressure of going and getting a pass rusher, a guy that can put some pressure on the quarterback. So then you can kind of work your way up in terms of the rest of the defensive line and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's the defensive line. Ashawn Robinson is still out there. He's another guy, more of a one technique with Billings in here and some of the other guys we have, Justin Jones. I think the one technique could be covered there. There's some guys in the draft that would fit in nicely in terms of the one technique as well. It's that 3 technique and that edge guy in terms of consistent pressure is what you're looking for. So I know you and I had a conversation, Aldo, in terms of a slot corner. I think they're gonna draft probably a corner to play slot. If they're thinking about going free agent wise, you think Kyler Gordon could play slot corner. I like him more on the outside, but if you're going to do that, you could Rock Ya-Sin is out there in terms of an outside corner. He's a guy you can slide Kyler Gordon inside at corner. So those are some possibilities there as well. But I think what Ryan Poles now is doing, I think is just kind of let the market come to him. I'm not sure if any of these guys are on his agenda, if he's just going to maybe just go in. Because remember, there's going to be another phase of veteran free agency after the draft. Teams that pick players at a certain position now have a surplus. We either try and trade or release players. So there could be another opportunity after the draft to bring in some veterans, for areas that you didn't cover, during the 7 rounds of the draft. So it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, I mean, definitely the offense and defensive line still are I think defense more right now than offense, because I think offense, you pretty much have the makings of a complete unit. Right tackle obviously is a big spot there that's we need to address either during the draft or post draft. But I think you have the makings of a former offensive line. But again, the defensive line is really something that really bothers me, and I think it still bothers it should be still bothering Ryan Poles. That's what I'm saying. Like, getting the linebackers first, good players, and I understand the value aspect of it, how he explained it, but it's like you're building your defense from the back to the front, and I think usually I'm accustomed to seeing teams build from the front to the back. So it's just getting that 3 technique I think is paramount. And we just saw the 49ers dish out all that money to Javon Hargrave, and be able like, why would they get Javon Hargrave? Because Javon Kinlaw has been a bust so far, and the importance, even though you have a great pass rusher on the outside like a Bosa, the importance of right now is these interior guys that can just get into the quarterback's face because of these quick games, one step, get rid of the football real quick. These edge guys don't have time to get to the quarterback. So these defensive tackles that are more closer to the football are more impactful now in terms of your pass rush. So I think that's why you see a team like 49ers putting up big money to get Javon Hargrave, something like that. So, that great technique is paramount. I think until the Bears fill that position with a quality player, it's going to be an area of need that they need to continue to search for.
My good friend, Mr. Shorty, has been pounding the table. He's in the chat room now, pounding the table for tight end Darnell Washington out of Georgia. I think he's like 6'7", 250 pounds, an athletic freak. His pass receiving numbers weren't great at Georgia, but his blocking was sensational. Another friend of mine, Berlissimo, says he might be the best blocking tackle coming out in this draft. What do you guys feel about Darnell Washington? Do you side with Mr. Shorty and Berlissimo, or do you have a differing opinion on the big tight end?
Well, for me, I mean, yeah, he's in terms of at Georgia, he was more as an inline, blocking tight end. I think 6'7", 35+ inch arm length. I mean, the guy's a beast. And when he was thrown to, I mean, he showed the ability, to be a good pass catcher down the field. He's not a guy that's going to stretch the field by no means. He's a big body guy. I just think that, I think he's a guy that's pegged to go in the first or second round. I just right now with the way the situation is in terms of the defensive line and even some of the offensive spots are still available, a tight end is a reach spot for me right now. I mean, you got obviously Cole Kmet. You brought in Robert Tonyan on a 1-year deal. I think Tunyan's more of that flex kind of slot, tight end, if you will, a guy they can use to kind of help, get down, make some plays down the football field. But this is a deep tight end class, and you can probably get one in day 3 that can come in and be a contributor right away. But yeah, I just can't see going for a tight end early on in the draft with these, in terms of the needs you have right now, especially along the defensive line.
What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't even thinking about him as even an option, because if you look at where our needs are and where the talent is and how high we have to pick to get that talent, there's no way that we're even thinking about taking a tight end till at least round 3. And I think at pick 64, there's still even more needs to address than before we even get to the tight end position. I think that's definitely a day 3 position that we'll address. There's, like Danny said, there is a ton of tight ends out there. It's extremely deep class, kind of like the cornerbacks. I mean, you could list off 10 names. You're still getting to guys that can come in and probably make an impact on day 1, maybe on the offense, but certainly on special teams. Guys that you can add depth to a position group that really haven't had a whole lot of depth, in recent years. So. Day 3 is definitely where, the Bears are going to target that. I can almost guarantee you they're going to take a tight end in this draft, because you don't not take, I was always operating under the rule when it comes to recruiting. You always start and end recruiting in your backyard, number 1, but also number 2, take what the class gives you, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a class with an extremely deep cornerback board, wide receiver board, tight end board, that means that when you're in a position to grab somebody late, you're going to have a uniquely quality depth at those positions where you're drafting. So you're going to go ahead and get value wherever you pick them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's an example. Like a guy like Sam Laporta from Iowa, 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds. He's a guy, comes from, he's a guy that plays in line, can be a threat down the field. And he's a guy that could probably be available there in the 4th round, for example. So, Sam Laporta, just an example in terms of the depth here in this class where you can get a quality player like that to come in. Now, he doesn't have the dimensions in terms of Washington, but he's got the production in terms of being able to, be a quality pass catcher and also be someone that can, hold his own in terms of an inline blocker as well. So just too much depth to go with tight end in the 1st or 2nd round, especially with this team and with their needs here.
Yeah, and the tight end from Purdue, Dylan Parham, he actually was at Hallis Hall for a visit recently.
One of the 30 visits. Yep.
What do you think about his play? I fell in love with him down at the Senior Bowl. He played well. He's an excellent blocker. He made some really nice catches in the scrimmages, and he's got a fiery attitude. I see mock drafts where he's still available in the 5th, 6th, even 7th round, and some mocks, of course, take that for whatever it's worth. But do you like the kid from Purdue?
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, Neil.
Well, yeah, I mean, just again, like we talked about Purdue guys before. Uniquely enough, I end up watching a lot of Purdue football in his house. He's a guy that's always stood out for all the reasons that you pointed out, everything that you saw down in Mobile. And again, like I was just finished saying the rant before, you're going to have positions of selection in this draft where you're going to be able to find value in positions like tight end. You're going to find a Dylan Parham in a 5th round. I'd be extremely happy if that's where you want to go ahead and take a tight end. That's where Ryan Poles is slotting the Bears to go ahead and take a tight end. And you have someone like Parham, the kid at Old Dominion. We can go on and on with tight end names. You're going to be very happy about the kind of value, the kind of talent, the ceiling on some of these guys that you're going to find in those particular draft positions.
Yeah. With Payne Durham, I mean, obviously, I think Senior Bowl week, he really kind of stood out there, especially in the practices. You get a guy at 6'6", 253 pounds with 33-inch arms. He's a guy that, lines up as a wide tight end, but I think, he's working there. That's not a strong suit in terms of being a great blocker, but he's a guy that definitely can be an option down the field. So another great example of a guy that's going to be available in day 3 where you can bring in and he can contribute as a rookie probably. So so that's another reason why, another example in terms of why I wouldn't go for a kid like Washington in either the 1st or 2nd round.
Cole Kmet is entering the final year of his contract with the Chicago Bears. It seems to me like of the bigger players, more talented players than the Bears who are entering their final year of contract with the Bears, that Cole Kmet would be the more likely candidate to have his contract extended. You can make the case for Claypool and Mooney, but I really believe that their performance in 2023 is going to dictate things. And I think it's almost a safer bet to, if there's an announcement before or right after the draft that Kmet's contract has been extended, I will not at all be surprised. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, Poles, highlighted him in his postseason, press conference in terms of the step that he made, Kmet, in terms of the growth he showed this year. I believe he 7 touchdowns he had this year. I believe so, if not more. But yeah, I mean, his rapport with Justin Fields was evident. I mean, at one point when Mooney went down, he was Fields' primary target. He was the most reliable target. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Kmet or, to be honest, even Mooney, if they get a contract extension, just to kind of take care of those. And that'd be another reason why Poles isn't out there with his checkbook open and trying to just willy-nilly sign and buy all these guys, because we all know from previous experience, you can't buy a great team in free agency. You just kind of hope to fill in some holes here and there. So, but definitely, I think Kmet is a guy that showed tremendous growth, and I think that should hopefully continue to grow here as he had more weapons around him, take more attention away from him. And I think him and Fields continue to build that relationship. I think he definitely will be a guy. I mean, at one point, he was getting 2 touchdowns a game. There's like a 2-week stretch that we had 2 multi-touchdown games. So definitely became a go-to target there for Justin Fields, and hopefully that continues.
Niel, you agree with Danny's take on Kmet? Completely.
He's a franchise tight end. At some point, I think you need to figure out a way to keep that guy around. He gives you, aggressive play. He's a tough kid. He catches the football. He can score touchdowns. I mean, he does all the things that you need your number 1 tight end to do. especially at a position where you really, in theory, don't spend that much money. Lock that guy up for as long as you possibly can.
Taurine says that Brad Spielberg says the Bears need to spend another $45 million in 2023 cash. He expects Poles to be active in that cap casualty market that Danny just talked about a little while ago. Lots of stuff is going to happen over the next few weeks, and we here at the Bar Room are going to cover it. Just about every day, you'll find fresh programming here on the Barroom Network regarding this draft. Guys, let's go around the table and get some final thoughts out of the way before we close this chapter of Draft on Tap. Danny Shimon, I'll start with you.
Yeah, just another great show. Excited. We're 1 week closer to the NFL draft, and just waiting to see what happens here in terms of pre-draft. Are there going to be any more moves? I just have a feeling there's going to be one or two more signings made by Ryan Poles and the Bears. I don't know. I can't really tell what position. I'm hoping defensive line. But I definitely think that there's going to be at least one or two more signings here as they get ready to go into the draft and kind of shore up some of those quote unquote needs that they'll have on draft day. But my first inclination is at number 9, especially if one of these quarterback drops. I know Eric wasn't too keen on the idea of someone coming up and trading up for one of these quarterbacks at number 9. But I just have a feeling that a team is going to feel the need to go up there and get one of these quarterbacks, especially if they drop. And I do anticipate Poles and company kind of trading down again and hopefully recouping that high second round pick somewhere, because if they draft at number 9, their next pick is at 53. That's a long way to wait for your next player, especially with so many players coming off the board at position of need. I really do hope that he kind of trades down and gets a high second round pick.
Would you trade next year's second round to get back into the second round?
No, I'm not trading any future picks. No.
Even though you got 2 number 1s next season.
Even though I got 2 number 1s next season, I'm not trading. I'm trading the 9th to go down, right, and then getting a high second round pick. For example, like a team like say Washington or Tampa that are in high mid higher pick in the second round than the Bears. Mm-hmm. That's where I'd go, and then I would just try and use that. Obviously, whatever pick I get from them in the first round, which is 15 for Washington, I think 19 for Tampa, and then I would use their second round pick to kind of get more players. Now, if I want to see a guy that's dropping in the bottom of the first round, and now I have 3 second round picks, now I can maybe package 2 of those second round picks and move up and get a third first round pick or a second first round pick, for example. You can talk me into that, depending who the player is and what position of need you're fulfilling there. But I would not trade any of the future capital. No whatsoever.
Niel, give us some gems to finish off the show.
Man, I think somebody's popping off fireworks over here right now.
or it could
celebrations
be
happening.
The police could be searching for the shooter right now.
Could be that too. You never know. The beauty of Chicago. No, I was looking through my notes. I was trying to find there was a specific vernacular that Ryan Poles used in one of the postseason press conferences about his approach he was going to take with this offseason as it pertained to free agency, as it pertained to the draft. I can't find it, and I don't want to butcher it, but I think, generally speaking, he spoke of how he was going to be patient, disciplined, like thoughtful, I guess would be a word to describe it. But mainly he was not going to freak out. He wasn't going to reach. He wasn't going to operate outside of the parameters that he set. And they weren't going to go outside of the plan that they put forth and the way that they're going to build this team, the type of people they want to bring in, the type of money they want to spend on certain positions. They're not going to overspend just to get a guy to make the fans happy, to make a splash, all those different types of things. I think it's really important. And, and we've all noticed, his MO over the past few weeks, the way that he's gone about his business with the people that we've signed and the thorough process that he's going through, figuring out ways to improve this roster. It's been a long time since I felt, I guess, like a certain level of comfortability, if that's a good word to use in the way that this personnel group is going about their business, building this roster. There isn't a whole lot of moves that they make that make me want to shake my head, that make me nervous, that don't instill confidence. And I think that's really important to note. And, this is the type of leadership that I would come to expect from this organization moving forward, the kind of leadership I wanted in his organization for a long time now. And I feel like we finally got it. There's still a long ways to go, as we keep on talking about, with all the holes that we need to fill, the kind of turnover he needed to go through to get this roster to where it needed to be. And we talked about the kind of situation that he inherited, with basically one arm behind his back and the empty cupboards and everything else, making beautiful decisions last year to acquire capital, making the correct decisions to fill his pockets up with all kinds of cash to use in the free agent market and to pay these rookies and to re-sign guys and make as many team-friendly deals as we possibly can, while also appreciating guys the right way. So I feel like this is a really interesting time that we're in right now, to where we might actually have like a grown-up, a buttoned-up, type of deal in place. And I'm excited to see what comes next. The next month is going to be fun to watch things unfold. Going into draft week, I'm going to be more excited for this upcoming draft than I have been in a while. And I know that, it's hard to surpass the excitement of the year that we got Justin Fields going in, not knowing what quarterback we were going to get, not knowing how it was going to pan out. And then, basically having a celebration, popping bottles the night that we got who we think is our franchise quarterback. I feel almost that level of excitement, if not more, this year coming up. So it's a good time it's good time to be rebuilding, I guess, because if I feel, confident, like I said, for the first time in a while.
Indeed. Guys, you brought it, and you stepped up in the pocket, as Phil Toshin used to say, and you nailed the touchdown pass 50 yards downfield. Great job. Thanks to Eric Edholm. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. It's Eric_EDHOLM. Make sure you follow Danny Shimon at DSHIMON56, and follow Niel Stopczynski at NIELSTOPCZYNSKI. I nailed it, right?
Take a breather, Aldo. Take a breather. I know it's a lot.
A lot of consonants there, man.
Oh, man,
We'll be back here. We'll be back here in 2 weeks. And of course, you can get more draft evaluation material on our Patreon page. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/barroom draft. And there are dozens of scouting evaluations there from my man, Danny Shimon. And I was going to say the old man, but if I say that, he might kick my ass. Greg Gabriel. They bring in it with some great stuff, and I'll be working all week and populating stuff, because the guys have been recording evaluations a la crazy, and it's hard for me to keep up with them. So with that note, we'll let you go, and make sure you follow the Barroom Network here on YouTube, so you can become aware of all of our live program. Until next time, we'll see you guys.